Man, I gotta tell you, if this doesn't bother you sitting there watching this happen to these small businesses, get off my channel. I'm telling you, because this is really bothering me. We're gonna go to war for these small businesses to make sure that they get the same exposure that the big businesses are getting all the time, okay? So the next time you're driving over to Walmart ordering something from Amazon, I want you to think about one of these small businesses. Because what they're going through right now, well, this ain't right. Here we go. Yep, out here at the Funded Project, we're gonna go raid Walmarts and stick signs in their yard that say "Save Main Streets," "Shop local," support local businesses. Funded Project, point the camera at Walmart.
So this is the heat transfer vinyl.
Okay.
All the colors. Sparkly, black. This one also has red and pink sparkles, holographic. So that's heat transfer. This is all permanent vinyl. Heat transfer goes on the shirts. Permanent vinyl goes on pretty much everything else.
Got a lot of it.
And the rest is all t-shirts.
Oh, okay.
Now ready to be put on the sign.
Yeah, it's cool. You're hanging out at Jennifer's office. Made treasures. Just making those yard signs that you see all over town. The ones that you're going to be seeing all over town. They're not all over town yet as I'm taping this, but they definitely will be. You'll see these popping up around town. Just like that. Good times. She's got a couple of these things here. So we can produce any of this stuff in-house. That's what's kind of cool about all that. Small business. So when you're buying merch on thefundedproject.com, it's all coming from here. It's actually really cool, isn't it? So this is weeding, huh?
Yes.
That is so check this thing out. That's just a sheet of vinyl that's blank right there. There's nothing on it. Moon shining through the trees. Going places we've never been. Wanna be there by your side. Making love till the morning. Gonna need another night like this. You got something that I can't resist. One kiss and I never wanna let you go. Oh, oh. Don't wanna miss another minute. Don't want another day without you in it. You're all I want, and I know. Gonna need another night like this. Tell your story. What happened?
Oh, God.
Well, what happened with Amazon? Let's start with that. What happened there with when Amazon Right before the holiday season.
I mean, if you want to get down to the whole, I mean, I've dealt with hearing or people asking me this question forever, and most of them don't understand until now they finally do when all of their clients have this exact same issue. And I was like, yeah, you guys didn't give a shit back then. I mean,
Right.
no one cared. They were just like, well, we don't care because you're e-commerce and everything should be going crazy. And I was like, yeah, well, the entire country got shut down. I mean, you want to talk about the pandemic, you tell me one person this hasn't affected. For e-commerce sellers, yeah, everyone's buying online more, but no one knew how to navigate through a pandemic when the government shuts down everything for months. So what happened was every e-commerce seller, if anyone tells you otherwise, then they're like a gigantic corporation that had no issues to begin with. Like the problems we all had were, yeah, our sales went up, but we were liquidating for pennies on the dollar because we were trying to recoup stuff that was already supposed to be in there. I still have products getting inbounded, that are still coming into like my prep center from orders that I bought over 6 months ago. I have stuff that was supposed to be in Amazon's warehouse in like October, just hitting my prep center now. And I'm just like, yeah, this is, it's ridiculous. And other people will tell me, well, you should have seen this coming. And I'm like, you tell me one person that saw all this nonsense coming. Tell me one person. UPS is still screwed up. The logistics are still screwed up everywhere. I mean, I got in a problem with one of my cards because, last year, because I leveraged it for inventory, and regular logistics tells me, this is when I'll start seeing money back, and then everything, I did it right before everything got shut down. It hasn't left from the supplier.
What happened to the orders? I guess, what happened with the orders, I guess? I mean, because this is what's kind of crazy, because when somebody ordered, and if they weren't able to get it, did Amazon just refund their money and basically?
No. This was, this stuff was, it was products from my suppliers, inbound inventory. So this was all, inventory I purchased in bulk at the start of the year that was just sitting there for months, not moving. That was already, in the grand scheme, the regular version of everything, it's inbound, it's selling within 1 month, 30 to 45 days. When it isn't moving for 3 months, and then when it starts to move, by that time, everyone's completely backed up. And when they did get open, they were all severely backlogged. So then instead of it taking 1 to 2 weeks for your stuff to get out, they're like, hey, we're back open, we're trying to get everything out. It's now taking up to a month or more to get your stuff out. And then at that point, you're running into all the logistical issues with the carriers that are taking an extra 1 to 2 months because everyone's backlogged. It was a domino effect. And then on top of that, you want to talk about the Amazon side. Amazon didn't even let third-party sellers do anything for about 6 months. Any inbound inventory, anything like that. If you weren't selling essential items, you weren't allowed to do anything. Everything was frozen.
You can't even take your product and put it into the warehouse to be shipped out when
no,
they bought it online.
They wouldn't. They froze all inbound shipments. You couldn't even create inbound shipments. So if you had product in there already, then fine, but they weren't even prioritizing that. So if anyone bought your product, they were advising them it was going to take 1 to 2 months to get it because they were prioritizing the essential products, which, makes sense in the grand scheme of things. But this whole talk about, well, you're an e-commerce seller, you're making so much money. I'm liquidating the crap out of stuff just because it's been so long. I mean, like I said, Amazon wouldn't allow you to do anything. You could still sell as a third-party seller, but you had to switch it to manual fulfillment for months. And when everyone's doing that just screwed up. That was a freaking nightmare when that happened. My prep center was freaking out over it, and they were like, all right, we're gonna try to help you out, and everything was just a huge mess. So for about 4 to 6 months last year with Amazon alone, there was all that huge mess. And then it's you think everything's going to be fine going into the holidays because things kind of started getting a little better. Amazon was okay, we're going to allow stuff to come back, and you're like, great. Well, then you keep running into all the other issues that were domino affected: the logistics, the suppliers, the prep centers, everyone being super backed up. I mean, my prep center closed 4 times for 2 weeks every time after the mandatory shutdowns because the city kept closing them down because of the stupid COVID trace thing. That was like one employee in the office was near someone who may have tested for COVID. Like it was like this whole stupid thing. Like no one ever got COVID, but they just had to keep shutting the warehouse down because of the trace thing. I think one of the times the owner said one of their employees' brother that they haven't seen in 7 days apparently may have been exposed to COVID, so the city had shut them down for 2 weeks.
So what happened with the inventory that you ordered like a year ago, 6 months ago? Is it just starting to trickle in, or did they just cancel it, or what did they end up doing?
Yeah, it's still trickling in. And whenever it's not really much of anything. Like the other thing, people that don't know e-commerce seem to, for some reason, they think of like, oh well, if you spent, let's just say argument's sake, $100,000 of inventory, then retail it's probably around like $300 to $500K, like depending on what you sell it for, and it's like, oh, you're fine, you're set. No, see, that's if it all was there for the holidays. Holidays sell at full retail price. Like,
right, but right now, when it's not holiday season, your markup is only about 25% versus where it's normally double down what you pay for it.
Well, and it's not even that, because what happens is when you're this backed up from everything and you have, your like other stuff to pay, including living, then it comes down to where you just liquidate the crap out of anything to move it, especially if things are out of season. And you can't keep waiting for it when you just need to get it out now. It's just dead money. It's been dead money for like a year. So it's frustrating. Like, yeah, it's like, I mean, I've talked, like, any e-commerce business you talk to, like, again, minus the super huge guys, but like the small guys, like me, like other people I know that sell FBA, they're just like, yeah, man, like we understand like your frustration because it's happening to them. They're like, dude, I spent like $30,000, and they're like, I'm still getting inventory coming in that was supposed to be in there for the holidays. You can't account for a pandemic. You can't account for like usually.
No one had that in their business plan. We talked about that in previous episodes about how people just nobody had that. None of us did, including myself. No one.
Like, look at this. All right, I'm gonna get into like some of like the nitty gritty crap I've had to deal with.
When it came to smaller retailers, and not even just smaller retailers, we saw larger brands leave the industry, go down, and never come back. Large retailers, because they couldn't get current inventory into their stores at the time that they needed it. Furthermore, there is also the whole point of when it did make it to Amazon. Now then, Amazon wanted to start charging people rent for that product to sit in the warehouse, and yet it's expired product, and they can't sell it. So, when he came over to the Funded Project, when you came over here, but
December.
Yeah. It was a fiery car crash already at that point, because you were already in the situation where we were just like, okay, well, we're going to need to go ahead and try to get some inventory in, some current inventory. But then Funded Project basically worked with him and basically rebuilt a whole new e-commerce platform, and then set up a whole different, what's called a modelless dropship situation, to where he wouldn't have to have that upfront cash outlay to be able to have current product to be able to sell. That's what the Funded Project basically stepped in to do. It was to save his business, because it was an absolute disaster, and he would have been out on the streets, totally out of business, had we not been able to start doing something like this. Furthermore, some of the funders, one of the funders that's right there involved, he would have been in a bad situation, because he would have lost the money that he put into his business to try to get this thing up and rolling. So this was our answer to, okay, well, we'll just build a whole new platform. We'll go ahead and rebrand it, remarket it, send it out, and then go ahead and get things launched. So that's what this is that now we are at the very, very beginning of a brand new launch right here. So that way he has a whole new set of inventory, whole new set of everything all ready to go. So that way he can actually pull himself back up and get back to good and get back to business the way that he deserves to, because nobody planned for the pandemic, as we already mentioned. So this way he can go ahead and make whole, because he didn't go and take funding out with the intent of never paying it back. He took funding out because he had the intent of trying to save what was his business and try to pull it back forward and get everything back up and going. But the problem was is that due to unintentional malevolent behavior from other parties, it just caused him into a situation where he could not get the inventory in that he bought. So there wasn't anything he could do. There wasn't any product that when he buys this product and he can't get it in, that means he can't sell it. So he can't spend the profit. So therefore the program failed. So we just revamped the whole program altogether for him and basically set it up where he can go ahead and move forward from here. That's what the Funded Project's about.
Well, 2020 has been a rough year for a lot of people. I got to tell you, it's been a rough year for these e-commerce stores, too. Could you even imagine having your inventory sitting around in orbit and letting it just go past a season for where you could sell it and make money off of it, and then on top of that, not being able to have trade shows or anything else to be able to go work? So it's really sucked for some of these guys, I got to tell you. So handmadetreasuresllc.net, I'm going to encourage you to definitely go over there, check them out. She's not been able to work any trade shows or anything. We did work some with her with the magazine, with Circle City Magazine. We were able to set up a few trade shows, and we're going to continue trying to set some of those up as we go through the spring and summer. Now, as for Nick and New Fashion Direct, we just flat out rebuilt a whole new platform for him so he can go ahead and sell independent. Because here's what the interview did not talk about. Amazon charges these retailers anywhere from 3% to 15% for them to have their inventory filled by Amazon and then shipped out by Amazon. So they're taking a good chunk of that money off of these small businesses. These are independent operators that they're not paying any money out for to get that inventory in there, and they're just charging rent for their inventory to sit inside their fulfillment distribution centers. And that's really a horrible thing for them. So, newfashiondirect.com, definitely go check that out. And then handmadetreasuresllc.net, go check that out. We're going to drop links into the description for both of them. And that, and also, we're going to talk about this Wilson shopping spree, too. Could you imagine what it's like for some of these businesses? They keep on struggling, keep on just one punch after another. Imagine this, if you were a huge retailer, or even if you were a small retailer, you ordered product and you had to pay for it right there, and it just never showed up. They basically told you, oh, it's going to be a few months, we'll get to you when we get to you. And then if you were that retailer and you got Christmas trees in April, how do you think you're going to be able to sell those Christmas trees? You can't. You can't even liquidate that stuff. That's a mess.
Go to thefundedproject.com to learn more. And if you are a small business in need of help, we want to hear your story. The world needs to hear your message. Thefundedproject.com. Together, we can save Main Street.